Oh boy, do we have a deep dive for you today. A solo performance. Matty is going to be back with us. I think every second week is going to be the play, just so we can give his sort of new perspective every second week there. And I think we're making similar trades as well. So he did score 803 this week. I think sits him firmly in the top 15K. So a better position than I am currently. But that's where things are going to be at. And I think every second week, I'm going to get into a little bit more of a deep dive and give you some options as well on week-to-week basis in all the positions. So I've got my top targets here for each position for round 3, and then we've obviously got a few people on the watch list in the Dolphin side, which I haven't featured in here, but there's guys like Hammer, Plath, and the like. I did see Hammer was actually on this who's not list, so 0.77% of people have actually decided to trade him out. After that performance on the weekend, he's got plenty of cash to make, so please do not make that trade. But what we're noticing here in this week, guys, is that most people are making trades. So there weren't a lot, and there were a lot, I should say, of people last week that decided to not trade at all. And then there were a bunch that did the double trade. And this week you're seeing the percentages of players increasing in their ownership percentage, going up massively, with two guys in Galvin and Finefeuiaki over 7%, Terrell May at 6.3, and then Joey Lussick at 4.8. And plenty of negatives on the other side with Lussick, Wong, and then Mam and Gagai both over 2%. And if I'm just looking at this who's not list, I think we're pretty well set on players you can trade out. Apart from, I'll speak about Drew. I don't know how much of a trade out he is. Kalen Ponga, I don't think he's a trade out. Reynolds, fair enough. And then Hammer. All the rest, I think that you can definitely trade out. And then who's hot list, we're going to go through all of them, except for Tyron Wishart, guys. He's only going to be in for 1 week in the starting side, so he's not a purchase. And then Selwyn Cobbo is a solid one as well, who I will use this to add. Hosking's actually been brought in by 1.6%, so I do understand for the cash grab, but just be aware, guys, that he won't be starting most likely. All right, let's go to just a Cobbo to start things off, and then I'll go through a bunch of those targets with you. Guys, if by this stage of the video you can't see timestamps, let me know in the comments. I may have forgotten, but the plan is to get that in for these videos, and then I've got my short version later. So if you want the deep dive, this is the video. If you like the shorter version, where I just quickly go through and give my quick take on all of them, then that will be out later today as well, tonight, in fact. So Selwyn Cobbo at 596. He has the dual position, which is cool, and he's definitely someone that you can target this week. I understand why you would. He does have Penrith. I also understand why you wouldn't because of Penrith. So, having them there, the Cowboys, and then Melbourne, it's a fairly tough 3-week period. Obviously, against the Rabbitohs, it was a slightly easier competition in that outside backs. His tackle numbers were much better, 18 for 2 misses. He could go back to what he did in that first one, 6 tackles for 4 misses, obviously up against Manu. In this case, he's going to be up against Isaac Tungal. So he could definitely miss a couple of tackles there as well. So I see positive in both. Like, he could be a guy that gets closer to the 700k mark and is a 50 point or close to 50 point center, but it's also something we're unsure about at the moment. So it's a risky play. It's definitely in the risk it basket if you want to, considering they don't have a buy all the way through until 13 as well. You could do it, but I would personally side against it. Let's go through a couple of those targets now in each position. And the hooking position, guys, you've got some mid-range options and some high-range options. So Lussick is the guy you want to look at in the more mid-range, in the 500s, and all three of the other guys in Tanner Boyd, Reece Robson, and Api Coruscant, all in the 600s there. I do believe all 4 of them are good options coming into this week. Some might make a little bit more money. Some might be a little bit more solid in terms of points, and one has dual position in Tanner Boyd. Coruscant's the one that kicks goals, obviously, with Tanner as well, and they're all at a similar price as well. So we'll get into them further in the video shortly. So that's the hooking position, guys, just to keep you thinking about that as we go through the positions. Jamal Fogarty, 673. So we're going to compare him to Mitch Moses in this one. It was a question that was asked, and I think it was a very good one at that. So when you're looking at Moses, it's 734 compared to Fogarty at 673. It's a 61k difference. Fogarty has the lower break even at 33 there. Moses at 63. So both sitting in a position where they can score well. We know that. But are you focusing on a little bit of money making? I do think Moses will probably outscore Fogarty by a little bit, and that's why he's potentially an option. You could also wait with the half position. If you are grabbing like a Galvin this week, or you're sticking solid with Hutchison, and you've got Cleary, or you've got Hynes, whatever that play is, then I do understand why, and I would probably position myself on the side of holding off this week and buying him for the Tigers matchup, because then it is Tigers, Canberra, Cowboys, Dolphins in Manly into their bye, right? So that's pretty solid to look at there. And you can make a decision on what you're doing with him at that bye, because then it's Broncos, Melbourne, Bunnies, and then if he's playing Origin or not, the Sharkies in round 13. And if he's not, then you've held all the way through round 13 and 14, which is really, really cool. But at this stage, we haven't seen enough from him to show that he's going to be a 55-point scorer, and that's what you're buying him for at a minimum, right? So at the moment, he's only had the one goal. He gave up the goal kicking as well last week after one goal to Gutho. So I think it's still a big risk at this stage to buy him, and I would look to buy him next week, right? We know he's a gun scorer. He can be in the 70s and stuff, but he hasn't shown that as yet. With Fogarty there, that's the big one, right? At 673, given he has the lower break even, he's gone 56 and 58 across the first 2 weeks. And in that scenario, he's had a lot more goals to kick because the team's been doing well. So do expect the team to not perform as well against teams like the Warriors, the Sharks, and the Eels over the next 3 weeks. So the goals might be more around the 2 to 3, I would say. Still likely would get a try assist. Tackle numbers will be about the same. Kick meters average out to somewhere in the 500s, I would say, for him. Yes, he got 2 turnover tackles, so I think overall he'll be about the 50 number going forward. And he's priced very close to that. So 673 is around the 47 mark, I believe. And potentially 46, somewhere there. And I definitely think he can come up into the 700s. Is it 50k more of gains? Likely. Can he go a 50 this week or a 48 or something like that? Likely as well. So he's not a slam dunk pick anymore. I do think he's a really good pick, but there's some thoughts either way, to be honest with you. Obviously he can come out and get a try or something himself, but he could also have a game where he misses a few more tackles. Kick meters aren't there as much, and they drop the ball a bit more, right? They've had terrific handling of the ball. I think they've missed 1 or 2 sets. There were errors last week, so he was able to kick plenty and do good work. So Fogs, I definitely think, is a solid pick without being spectacular. Someone who's going to make some money is that of Lockie Galvin at 261. So you saw that game on the weekend. He did score about 15 points in the back end through some running. He did get a line break in that time. So just be aware that won't happen each and every week. Obviously against a team like the Sharks and the Eels over the next few. He does follow that with the Dolphins and the Dragons, but with a really low break even near 0, he did have 2 errors, he did have 3 penalties. So if he could improve that slightly, have the odd extra kick meter, potentially, as he settles into this side, 22 tackles for 0 misses, I suppose you could probably trade an error or a penalty or 2 and add that onto the missed tackle count. And I still do think he's a very comfortable 30s player. And a 261k with a very, very low break even, it's very hard to pass him up this week. We'll obviously speak about Finefeuiaki as well in the next section. But Galvin, I think, is the clear standout cash cow of the week and is the cheapest at that. So he's been named to start now with Caesar, and Sullivan has been moved to 14. So I doubt that Galvin is the man to change that position. He was a little bit more of the dominant half with Sullivan. So how does that change with Caesar? I'm not sure it does, to be honest with you. Maybe some of the kicking. But I think overall, Galvin is still a very important cog in this team, and you should see it that way yourself. Because when you move to Finefeuiaki, he is 293k. Before we go through him, I just want to go through the mids now. So next targets to buy, guys, is a little bit in the mid-range as well with Terrell May and Ruben Cotter. Both guys, I think, that should be higher on your priority list, given the price that they command, in the high 500s to early 600s, to that with Cotter. And should both be on the list for sure if you do need or are looking for a mid. Just be aware of the guys you can move from your mid to your edge position as well. If you need some dual position, obviously with Lukey going down, we've got Wong that's not playing. We have an edge position that is really hard to fill with great players at the moment. So having some flexibility around your mids and also your edge is going to be super important for you guys in this one. So they're the 2 guys. And you've got up top with Isaiah Yeo. You cannot go wrong with him, so have to pop him on this list. You have Hopgood in next as a second gun to potentially target if you want to go up that high. Don't expect the 70 minutes each and every week. Probably in the 60s, but still good. Do remember, though, he didn't score that well in round 1. So there's that. He could come back down to that and score about a 50 for sure. And then you've got Adam Elliot and Curran as slightly lesser options than the above May and Cotter. But I do think both will do fairly well for your sides if you decide to pick them up. There's no real issue, but Elliot's got a bit more expensive and Curran has had a few injuries to kind of offset his skills. But we'll get to them in a deeper dive in a second. Finne. He has the break even a little bit higher than that of Galvin and is more expensive. So it's going to be harder for him to make money. Obviously, if they score the same, Galvin's going to go up more as well. Our issue with Kule is the fact that over his time, he has a 21 in 30 average there, right? So that we do need to look at minutes over 40, let's say, right? And that's a 28 in 48 minutes. So I'm expecting him to be around the 55 minutes or so. And with his current average of 28, right, for this year, he has a 38 in there. And he has, what did he play in the first game? He played 34 minutes for 19. So yes, you do expect it to be a lot higher than 19. But if you look at these scores in this one, 22 in 30 minutes, you have 45 with the try, you have 23 with the try in 12 minutes there. And then you've got any games where he's not scoring tries. He has 18 with a try saver in there in 47 minutes, which is not great. 13 in 52 minutes in the last game of last year with 8 missed tackles. He had 4 in that other game I was speaking about. He did have a 28 in 21 minutes, a 16 in 39. So he's a little bit all over the shop in terms of his PPM. So I think there's every chance that he comes out and plays like he did on the weekend. He did have 2 offloads, 2 tackle breaks, a turnover tackle as well, and no missed tackles with 117 meters, which was the highest meters he's ever run in a game of NRL. So he could come out and do that. He could also come out and get 55 minutes with Gosefsky on the bench, which is likely, and could get you a 25, right? And then you look at that and go, oh, he makes a little bit of cash, but he really needs to come out the next week and get you a 35 or 40. The big thing here is that he's up against the Dragons, right? You can factor that in, but next week it's up against the Broncos, and they could tear him to shreds. We don't know, right? So week to week, he could be a 20s guy, could be a 30-odd, and it could be great. I definitely would be interested in buying him. I just wanted to give you the other side of the coin, that there are potentially some issues with his PPM in the minutes that he's going to provide, right? If he was to get 80 minutes, then he's a slam dunk buy. But because he's going to get 55, he has some games that's going to be poor, some games are going to be good. So keep that in mind with Finne. All right, Samuela Fainu, another guy that requested to speak about, obviously after he's 54 in 59 minutes. Do I expect him to get 59 minutes again? No. Is there a chance that he does? Sure. But at 379k now after that good jump from last week, he puts himself in a very awkward position. The dual position is good with mid and the edge. That can help out for sure. I personally just would go Finne over Fainu. Yes, I think Fainu has the higher upside for sure, given he got a line break, a try. The line break wasn't from that try either, but a try saver as well. He did have 38 tackles. He had no tackle breaks, no offloads. So there's definitely some upside on that as well. Let's just say he worked really hard, had a few missed tackles like he did, but got some tackle breaks and offloads, take away a try. He can still get to the 40s for sure. And he did look a much improved player from last year when he was playing with the Manly Seagulls. So you did see him get dropped as well in this. So he played a couple of games and then played some interchange games for big minutes and then got dropped after that 6 missed tackle effort, unfortunately. So if he's improved, then awesome. I definitely think that he can come out and do well, but it's an awkward price. If you really like him, go for it. If you're on the fence, I would say hold off and wait would be my suggestion there. Before we get to Wong, we'll get into the next guys to target in the edge position. So it is Finne. You do have, forgot to put in Fainu, didn't I? Yep. So Fainu down there as well as an option, as we just spoke about him. Cool. Who's dual as well with the mid. Awesome. Yeah, so Finne I've got there. No particular clear order on these one guys. So then we've got Joe Chan as well. So he's just someone that we need to speak about, given we have a lot already, but he's someone that's under 300k that is making money and has a full-time job in that side. So he needs to be on people's list, I think, probably before Finne. but I know a lot of people have him already. But if you don't, I do think that he can get you mid-30s on a regular basis, somewhere in the 30 to 35 range, potentially with try-scoring upside eventually, and be a good option for your sides. Papali'i, guys, first game for him on the board. He got a lot of junk work, which we'll speak about in a sec, but he's definitely there. Olakau'atu, need to have a look out for sure. Jeremiah Nanai. Just wanted to pop a few of the sort of pod plays or guys that you might watch and go, yeah, they look really good. I'll talk about all of them. Olakau'atu I haven't got on my list, but he's a guy that could clearly take the leap this year. He should have scored a try on the weekend and got like a 70-odd. Wasn't to be with the little bobble, but he's someone that has try-scoring upside each and every week and seems to be working hard in a good team. So Ola, definitely on that list as well. And then we spoke about Fainu as well. So let's move on back to Wong. All right. Loving all the puns that are happening with him at the moment. It was the Wong choice. Two Wongs don't make a white. There's lots of puns going around with Siwa. Unfortunate that he has lost his spot, right? Two options. You can sell or you can hold as a loop. I think that's clear. You hold as a loop and you hope that potentially he can make his way back into side, right? There is worries on that because now they've got, Crichton in there on the bench. It looks like he's completely taken over from Wong. So he's sort of fourth in line now for that edge spot. And he wasn't playing big minutes anyway. So even if he was to come back in, it's probably off the bench. So looks like he needs to sort out a few things in his game before he can make it back into this side. So it's a sell and use the 475k, or it's a 1 week. I think it's a 1 week loop. Given next week we've got our Storm players out, and he's gonna have to be traded out next week. So that's where you look at this one with Wong. I'm potentially just using him as a loop next week, but I do have to have plans to sell him next round, right? So yeah, keep that in your thoughts. With Wong, he was doing fairly well in the minutes that he was being provided, but yeah, that's it on that one. All right, next one. Sitili. So he now is more chance of being sold because of all the issues in people's sides. At 408k, he's even cheaper than what he started at. So he's now priced at around a 29. So surely that he can get closer to the 40 mark. Sometimes there will be games where he does score a try. He had 2 missed tackles and 3 penalties. He has not had 1 tackle break. He has not had 1 offload in that first 2 games. Yes, he had a try assist for 31, so it's pretty gross. But I do think that he's someone you can hold for 1 more week, see what happens. Their right side defensively hasn't been great. He comes up against Hawkins this week. So I do suggest that if you have Wong, if you have Lukey, they're the 2 guys to trade. Sitili you hold on to. He goes up against that right side defense, which now has Host, Hawkins, and then Tass, and then Milne, right? So that's their right-hand side. I definitely think Sitili is a great one to hold for this week, and you just hope that he can potentially score a try in this one. Would be ideal, that's for sure. Sitili, a solid one to hold. Tatola, I think he's just the forgotten man of sells, and I agree. I think he's probably a hold this week, given he played 51 minutes last week. He had 4 missed tackles, which I think is very, very high for him. He has 2 games in the last sort of 30 games with 4 missed tackles, so surely he cleans that up. The whole team needs to clean this up, and if he can get those minutes again, I think he can be in the mid-40s, and you look at that and you go, that's great. No problems at all with Tatola in that one. All right, Lukey. Next man on the list. So he's a clear sell, guys. Unfortunately, out for 6 to 8 weeks. He's the one to go before Wong because Wong has an opportunity to come back into this team in the next few weeks. If you were to look to only be making 1 trade or selling 1 of them this week, then Lukey is the clear guy there. Terrell May. I still have him on the clear buy list, guys. His ownership percentage is growing. It's obviously grown plenty in this week already, but if you still haven't thought about buying him, he's back named on the bench this week. It's Hargrave's 300th this week. So massive congrats to Jared for a very impressive career so far. And likely he starts and gets the run on, obviously, in this game. And Terrell, I still think that they're mucking around with their rotations. He got big minutes in both of these first 2 games. And I do think that they might go back to him playing that full second half. Potentially comes on with 15 to go or 10 to go or something in the half, and then plays the rest of the second. So it's very much been shown that he can play big minutes. So he played the full half in the first week, the second half, and last week he played the full half in the first half. And yeah, I still think that he's a clear buy. He's got at least 100k to make. That's if he's a 50-point guy. He could be a 60-point guy or a 50-odd. We don't know. So I still think he's a clear buy this week. That's it. Joey Lussick. So he becomes a little bit more interesting, that's for sure. Unfortunately, we've missed out on 55k in gains from him so far. But it is what it is. We were looking to buy him clearly if he was a 450 guy. He does look like he's improved as a player as well. He kicked for some meters in the first game. He got try assist in that. He got a 40-20. In this last game, he got a try. So there's definitely an uptick in sort of the attacking stats, which I think will die down. But the minutes likely are to be closer to that 77 than closer to the 63 from here on. And that means an increase in base, so 29 to 40 in the first 2 games. That might land somewhere in the mid-30s. He did have games last year as well, where he hit 54 tackles, 42 tackles. He was missing a bunch, which he hasn't done this year. And hopefully, early on in the year, means that he can stick to a few more tackles. The team is also better, so be aware of that, guys. Since when he came into the team at the back end of last year, the team was struggling. There's definitely a world where he can hit 30s and be painful, but there's a world where he hits 45 average and has like 100 or so thousand to make with that already low break even. So personally, I think I'll be looking at buying him. If you're in the Harry Grant situation, then I do think picking one of these hookers is a great option. Whether it's Lussick, whether it's Tanner Boyd, whether it's Appy or Robson, I do think that they're going to be great to cover for this week coming up. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on Mr. Lussick at this stage. I think he's a good purchase, but don't be alarmed, or be alarmed for sure, but don't be surprised if he does hit in the 30s. That's for sure. All right, Abby Coruscant. So he's at 627, so it's well over 110k more. And he had 2 goals, a try, 3 tackle breaks, and kick defusal in that game and still got 58. So my worry is if he doesn't get the attacking stats, right? There's definitely opportunities for that sometimes where he doesn't get them, and other games where he misses more tackles than 4. So be aware of that with Appy. I do think that he's still a good buy, and I think he can average closer to the 45 to 50, which gives him a little bit of cash to make and will be a good option for your sides. It's very simple with him. He can have games where he gets close to 80 minutes and gets a 30 odd. He has games where he can get 50 odd in 68 minutes, right? And then, you see here, very clear example, 73 and 80, 31 and 80. And that's with goals as well in the back end. That's that with Appy. Move to the next guys to speak about the halves. We have Fogarty, we have Hynes. If you can get to Hynes, that would be really, really cool. I haven't got him in the big review, but up against the Tigers this week, I think he can go nuts, and he could be a really, really good captaincy option this week for your sides. I would be if I owned him. If there's a way for you to get to him, obviously with a buy in 2 weeks, like you get round 3, round 4 buy, that's not ideal. But if you do own him, I think you're going to push above the pack this week. So Fogarty, Hynes, Moses, and Galvin are your half options. For your centers, it's Penasini and Holmes. I don't really want you to go for any of the cheaper guys, in my opinion. Cobbo was the other one that I was meant to put in as a third option. And the wing fullback, it is Turbo, it is Teddy, it's Pap, it's Latrell, and Walsh. I'm not going to suggest you go for anyone else other than Taylor May, but obviously his break even has grown, which and the buy coming up a little bit closer. So last week was the play with him. I do think he comes out and scores well. So if you want him still, I do understand, but I probably would go and make sure you have like Turbo for that little bit extra getting to this week. And then like Pap, if you don't own, obviously him now is decent, or in round 5 after his buy, Walsh, he will kick goals and have kick meters this week, but it is up against the Broncos. So that's that. All right, Tanner Boyd. So he's someone that I think is going to get very close to a 45 to 50 average. And he's priced at the 45 or close to it, right? So when you're looking at him, you go, okay, well, can they play a bit better than what they did on the last weekend? Because he had no goals, he had no attacking stats, no tackle breaks, no offloads, 2 errors in there, and 3 missed tackles. So 10 in negatives, kicked plenty, which we thought he would. He will with Kieran Foran as well. But if they play better, they have the Dogs and the Dolphins the next 2 weeks. If they play better, I think he can get into the 50s easily and would be a cheeky pod with hooker duel as well as the half. So he can help you in both positions, especially next week if you're a Grant owner. He's a very, very solid option. I think he can average 50 for the year and be a little bit underpriced for your side. Pretty simple. All right, Drew Hutchison, I think he's a clear hold, guys. As I said, been saying, as if you watch most of the videos, I've been saying that up against the Titans this week, the Dogs kind of need to pull their finger out and play a bit better. Random Stats Guy put out he was on the SC Playbook podcast, and he was just talking about how the Titans let in a lot of points to halfbacks over the last sort of 13 or something like that. Halfbacks that have played, they've done really, really well. It was like an over 60 score in Supercoach, which, yeah, is obviously different here. But adding kick meters and all the like for a half, and that would be somewhere in the mid-40s to 50 mark for sure. That doesn't mean Hutchison will, because he's not one of the top tier halves, but it does mean that, with the 34 and 29, he's still made you money both weeks. And a 25 break even this week still shows that it's not like he's going to be losing money anytime soon. We've got other spot fires to put out. I think that he can be better this week. He had 5 missed tackles. He kicked a lot more in general play, which I think is going to be good news with Burton running a bit more. So if he can run the show a little bit more, potentially get a try assist in there or something, would be delightful. And then, as I said, this was kind of like his base. We didn't think the Dogs would be this bad. This is the base, and if he can get any attacking stats and unlock this right-hand side with Kiraz, I'm really hoping that that's the case. So I think he's a hold. I understand if you want to sell, but he's a hold in my eyes. Someone I think is more of a sell is Flanagan. I'm worried for him that he won't be able to eclipse a 30 on a regular basis without attacking stats, right? 26 for him with a try saver in this one. He had 21 tackles for 1 miss as well, so the base was there. I'm worried about it, especially against the Cows, Manly. Newcastle will start to hum by then. The next 3 are fairly tough, and if the Dragons are going to be pretty poor, I'm worried for him and his output, just because he is not anywhere near the main playmaker. At least Hutchison kicked last week, and he has a really nice right-hand side next to him in Kiraz and Wilson and Preston. Flanagan's is decent as well, obviously with Suli, but again, not a known tackle, line breaker, try scorer. Got Ravalawa on that side, which is nice, and then they're likely going to be having Luciano Leilua there as well. But I do think that them at a similar price, I would take Hutcho over Flanagan. Moses Suli, guys, 456 for him. I do think he's a clear hold. He's had no attacking stats. He defended much better last week. He's only missed 1 in the 2 weeks for 13 tackles for 1 miss. So that side of it is good. Running the footy plenty, 161 and 211 run meters, but has 5 tackle breaks across the 2 games, no offloads, no attacking stats outside of a line break assist in the first game. So he's not losing any money. He's not gaining any. So if you want to sell, I understand, but I just think there's other problems in your team. Speaking about other problems in our team, Kiraz is not that guy either. 532, comes up against the Titans this week, and then the Bunnies the following week. That's going to be a fun one against Whiten, that's for sure, and Walker. But this matchup this week, if the Titans come out pretty poor, I think it'll be a closer game, and Kiraz should not have 7 missed tackles. He has not done that in his career. His next highest is 3. Oh, that's so sad that I had to own him for his worst missed tackle game. And 2 errors and a penalty as well. Very rarely gives away a penalty. So I expect a bounce back from Kiraz. Again, I'm hoping for a bounce back. Defensively, he was much better when he played centre than this last year. Still did have a few missed tackles. And I suppose he had more tackles last week, didn't he? What do you have? 18 tackles. Yeah, so he's been making a lot, but missing a lot this week as well. So that Sharks left side absolutely dominated him. I don't think that this left-hand side will be the same, even with sort of like Fermor being a good player and for it. I don't think he'll miss as many, and that's the hope anyway. So he's a hold. Speaking of holds, Kalyn Ponga, the break even isn't even that crazy, guys. 62. He could absolutely blow that out of the water. Thank goodness for him that the Melbourne team are missing both their halves. Still no Nas, so I do think it'll be a fairly close game, and Knights have to bounce back. They haven't played incredibly well the last 2 weeks, and he has not had a try assist or a try. So he's had a line break in both, but outside of that, attacking stats have been very scarce. He had no tackle breaks last week, so that has to improve. 35 and 39 across these 2 games, or I got down data 2 as well in the final changes. So yeah, him at 705, I think he clearly hold. Things do get easier eventually. He's got Dragons, Dogs, and Dolphins in 3 of the next 6 games, so just be aware that he will start to bounce back. All right, Tommy, I think he's one of those clear options, guys. This 667k break even's not out of in crazy land, but he does have Para, who I think will be a fun game. He can't play much worse than last week in terms of his error count, especially when he needed to at the end when they were trying to solidify that win, and the penalty that he had as well. Big run meters, 6 tackle breaks. He had 4 offloads. Seems to be in everything, but didn't have any line breaks, try assists, tries. When they come, he now has a higher base because he's been making lots of offloads. So that base will turn into sort of 60s, 70s eventually. So he's definitely a really good target. Does have Penrith in a couple of weeks, but we'll see how he plays. He's obviously a big target for him, but they're dominating in other positions, in other ways, because they're putting so much focus on Tommy. So just be aware of that. I think he's a good buy. Pappenhausen. It's weird to see him at the 520 mark after a score so big at 81, but that's the reality that we're at. He's only gone up a little bit. He does have the Knights this week, and I think he can have a pretty good game. I think it'll be a close one, so he's going to have to come in and do good things. He had 4 offloads last week as well, and a couple of forced dropouts with good run meters. So be aware that Pap could go really big this week. If you don't own him, it's an easy one that you can wait till round 5 for sure. If he goes a bit low this week, you could even wait through the Broncos matchup potentially. But he's had Penrith and Warriors, 2 hard matchups. Right now, it's only really the Broncos in the next lot of games that you'd probably worry about him scoring potentially slightly low. And so going him this week, if you have enough cover next week, I think it's probably a good play. If you don't have the cover, you can wait. That's probably where I'm at with Pat. Tommy Talau, I think if you own guys, he's a hold at this point, given it looks like his ankle injury isn't that bad, and very likely that he'll be back next week. I think he'll take his spot back because he actually played fairly well, to be honest with you. Did cop a head knock and then his ankle injury. Had no missed tackles on that edge. 1 error, obviously, but got a turnover tackle, got a try, got 4 tackle breaks. I think he was pretty good overall. So if you did purchase him, I think he's a hold. Use him as a looper this week if he's not playing. Josh Curran, we spoke about a little bit earlier, but 547k, 63 and 60 minutes, the first 2 games, for an average of 51.5. So if he was to keep anywhere near that 51 average or 48 or something like that, it's about 140 to 170k that you're looking at getting from Curran, who's a dual mid and edge. So if you needed someone in the cheaper mid-range category in the edge position, I do think Curran is the guy. I personally wouldn't go for someone like Smithies, who's in a similar boat here with the dual. I own him, obviously, but I am worried that his minutes will drop, and his ability to just get base in games that will be a slightly higher scoring in 60 minutes, I think, is where I think he'll end up. Is probably a little bit lower than Curran's ability to get some good attacking stats in there with offloads and tackle breaks, line break assists, potentially some tries and try assists eventually. All right, Hosking, the man of the hour. 697, he shot up quickly, 110 odd thousand. He's gone up, and there's 32% of teams in the top 100, so 32 teams didn't own him, and 56.2 that don't own him in the top 1,000. So yeah, some teams just did really well even without him, so good stuff to them. But 2 tries, try and a try assist in each of the last 2 games, 7 tackle breaks last week. I do expect him to play 50 minutes, so with a break even of 4, he's still a clear hold. I wouldn't be selling him personally. Would I be buying him? Probably not. I think that knowing now that he's going to be a bench guy when Elliot's in the team, it's very hard for you to buy him at 697, price near the 50 mark, for you to see him averaging well into the 50s, so 55. So I think with that, especially off the bench, he could be a 30s guy. It's clear. Hold, not a buy, and he'll make some money this week, and it might stop after that. We shall see. All right, last 2 guys. Adam Elliot, the next guy on the list is 639. He obviously crushed it last week. 2 tries, played 70 minutes. I'm not sure if 70 is going to be it going forward. It might be 60, but had 0 missed tackles. So he's made 75 so far for 1 miss. Had great run meters, had a turnover tackle as well last week. But yeah, the no misses is crazy. Won't get tries every week, so could get back to like a mid-40s guy. But again, has some money to make. I think there's worse options than going for Elliot. In this week, you obviously probably wanted to start with him and hold, because he's now up about, 60k, 63k. So it's a bit hard one on that, given he made so much last week. But yeah, probably all I've got to say on Elliot. A solid purchase for sure. And then Jeremiah Nanai. So he's come out with a try in each game and a try assist in that first game. But with the try, without a line break or anything last week, no tackle breaks, he was still able to work really hard, make 40 tackles, and still had a couple errors, but 100 meters gain, and still get a 54. So he could be a mid-40s to 50s guy for sure this year, and that means 50 to 100k of gain. So if you were looking at Jeremiah, I wouldn't push you away. He is likely to play Origin, so round 13 against that Roosters, he won't be there, but you've got him all the way until Origin, and then you could potentially sell from there. So that's my thoughts, guys. That's the buy, hold, the risk it, the sell. Definitely solid options across the board. That's the deep dive. Hopefully the timestamps are in there. Check out the rest of the videos, guys. We'll have Supercoach videos coming through soon, and the short one, and then I'm going to be going through a bunch of the private group teams on screen here, and then going through your YouTube questions as well. So get YouTube questions in if you want them to be answered on the channel, and a big thank you to you guys for being here for this video. You're all legends. Bye-bye.